run into Laura. But those are the two social workers that work West Side. Really keeping the questions pertaining to the parent, and if you don't have something that really truly presents a risk to the child, and it really is about just giving the parent some referrals, that would be your first course of action in those situations. If you've got a parent who says, I'm depressed, but I just need some counseling referrals, then providing them with counseling referrals would be the way to go. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that you covered them, and even in the case of a parent who's, you're kind of like, wow, something, it's possible sometimes the parents do substances while they're there. So they might not have presented as incoherently in the back, and you're like, you have a concern just based on what is happening right this minute. So we just want you to always know in those cases, definitely err on the side of going to the staff.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening, and you don't know if that parent presents, is that parent transporting that child? Those sorts, there could be risk to the child in that situation because you don't exactly know why they're presenting that way.
We hope this never happens to you, any of these things.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, we'd rather just like tell you up front, when these kinds of things happen, don't worry, we have your back, and so just go to your social work support.
And you had mentioned substance abuse with parents, and I think that's a good question. And my thoughts about that are, if you have a parent that does not present as impaired, and they're just asking for some substance abuse resources, but they seem coherent, they seem appropriate with the child, that just providing them with those resources is appropriate. But if you have a parent who's asking for substance abuse resources and they're presenting with some potential impairment, something that could be interpreted as impairment, then you would want to reach out to the social worker in the clinic. Does that make sense to everyone here? Okay.
So we'll keep going unless you have questions, because we only have till 7, right? So we have 20
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah. Follow-up calls. Can you talk about how you all do the follow-up calls?
I'm talking a lot. I'll defer to someone else if you want to just share what you do during follow-up. Okay, all right. So typically for follow-ups, during our initial visit with someone, we'll ask them, are you interested? We just want to do a quick call to see how you're doing, to see if any of the resources we recommended to you today worked out. And if they agree, then 2 weeks from that day, and of course if there are any scheduling concerns, we usually try and work around those. For example, if someone works during the day or they're not available at that same time. Volunteers, then we have a central Google Voice phone line that all of our volunteers use, so no one's giving out their personal phone number or anything like that. And we essentially just call them back, and we have a form with some pretty short questions of, did you use any of the resources? If so, can you tell me about the one that you did use? What services were you able to get? And we typically wrap it up with saying, is there anything else we can help you with? And our standard is doing a 2-week and a 4-week phone call after we initially see them. And then after that, it's the volunteer's discretion if they feel like more follow-up could be needed. Otherwise, we typically end it there.
Okay. We will have a phone for you, and that's under logistics. And then I'm going to have Jeanette talk a little bit about, would you like to just jump in and talk about interpreter services at this point? I think it would fit in real well.
So everybody that's going to be at West Side, here's some stickers. These are handouts specific to Nepali interpreters. We'll all take one of those, and here's a pile of these. So take a couple for each of you of those. And then there's one PowerPoint handout for each of you. So yeah, take 2 or 3 of those. There's enough. You want one?
Yes, thank you.
I know, lots of stuff, sorry. And if there are extras here and you want a few extras, feel free to take them. So our interpreter manager, her name is Valerie, but you can work through Lori and myself for this. But we did want to tell you with regard to your follow-up phone calls, I think there was a question of like, how can we use an interpreter? And when you're in the clinic. So the handout that I gave you is from Valerie, and it talks a little bit about the variety of types of interpretation services that we have. We have phone interpreters, iPad interpreters, and in-person interpreters. So depending on how busy the clinic is, you may end up using iPads most of the time, and on page 2 is a kind of a picture of what it looks like. Actually, the first screen that you see is just white, and it says essentially like start. So you push that button, you push one more button, and if you need more languages, you would push that, and then you have a person. Like there will be a person on this iPad interpreting in the language that you need. So it's really like 2 pushes of a button on an iPad. And we know that you are all more comfortable with that even than we are. So it really is easy. It's on a cart, and there will be a couple there. So if you're working with a family in the clinic, use the iPad. The families are used to the iPads also. And this is just a little bit of info from her. She also talks a little bit about kind of when to use video versus in-person and that sort of thing. That's really more geared toward clinical staff, but I went ahead and gave it to you anyway. Because we wouldn't want to use, for example, an iPad if we're doing a child abuse assessment with a parent. When things are more complex, an in-person interpreter is more appropriate. But for what you guys are doing, the iPad will probably work just fine. And so you'll just put it in the room so that wherever positionally, so that kind of you can see the interpreter, they can also see the family, and it's pretty easy to use. The other things that I gave you have, if you are calling from the phone, afterward, you can call using this 800 number. This is our access code, so this is for you guys only, like don't hand these out. Otherwise, then we're paying for families accessing them. So that's our access code. You just go ahead and put that in there, and you can use, and so it's the same thing on the sticker. I gave it to you in a couple different formats in case you want to, if you have a notebook and you want to put a sticker on your notebook so you don't lose it. If you have a badge and you want to stick it on your badge, whatever works for you. But that's the number that you will use with our access code to be able to get an interpreter for your follow-up calls and things like that.
Great.
And then this thing that I gave you is, that's what you can give to families. So if a family speaks Nepali, if you want them to call you back, or you want them to call the clinic, or something to do with Children's Hospital, this is the number that we want them to use, because what happens is, instead of going to our operator, who then gets somebody who can speak English and they're trying to figure out what to do with the person on the phone, it goes directly to the interpreter services. They pick up the interpreter on the way to the person that they need to talk to. So this you can hand out to families if there's a number that they would be calling you back at, and I don't know if that's the case or not, or to call into clinic or something like that. So that's for families, and that's for you. And the iPad, really easy to use. When we're there, we'll show you. We were going to bring one, but it's on children's Wi-Fi, so it wouldn't have worked here, so I did not bring one. But 3 buttons, you'll be fine. And if you have any problems with that, just let us know, and we'll take care of it. Any questions about?
So just to make sure I
Yeah.
understand, so we would give out, so for example, if we were working with a Spanish-speaking family, we would give them this number to call?
Yeah, you can just give them that handout and tell them, and this, we're getting a bunch of the different languages in these little cards. So if you knew they spoke Spanish, you could just give them a card and not their giant thing.
Okay.
But we do have them in Nepali, but nothing else right now. Yes, so you could give them that and say, please call this number if you're calling me back or calling the clinic back, because then they pick up the interpreter on the way to you.
So will we also give them our number, or like how, I guess, from the interpreter, how do they connect to
Yes,
us?
they would need to have your phone number too. And you can explain that when you have the iPad interpreter there, that this is who they're calling for and this is who they're trying to reach, the number they're trying to reach, but they'll want to dial that number to get the interpreter on the way to you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the plan is for me to be there at least the first week that you're there in the evening, to be able to support your transition into the clinic.
We're really trying to eliminate language barriers as much as possible and address some of those disparities related to language. So if you have any problems on the interpreter side of it, please tell us.
All right, the next piece of information we wanted to talk to you about is related to confidentiality and data collection. So when you completed your observation form, there was an agreement to confidentiality on there. But also within the MOU was the ability for us to access at least some of the information that you get. And so we wanted to ask you what kinds of info you'll be collecting, and do you collect it in a monthly report? Is there someone that would be able to address that question?
Yeah, so when we're doing the interviews, we collect it in what we call like a food bank manager. So all the information will be in that system, and then since I'll be the site director, I haven't done this yet, but at the end of each month, I'll like create a report. So
Great.
So the information in that is typically, how many clients have we worked with this past month? We sorted out with kind of completed clients who were able to finish through the entire consultation, and incomplete, maybe they had to catch the bus and we weren't able to kind of give them their resource packet and kind of wrap out the session. We track the number of follow-ups we schedule and how many we complete. We track the number of people we pitch to, so maybe the number in the waiting room at our spiel.